Hey guys, I'm Mr. Genie here, aka Mustached. I'm here to do another retrospective review. This time I'm going to be covering Digimon Season 3. So if you end up enjoying this full retrospective review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description when we'll head over to my petition to help out small YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server where you can join, collab, and chill and do all that cool stuff. And chilling will be reminded at the end of the review. With all that out of the way, let's get into Digimon Season 3, also known as Digimon Tamers now. So, unlike even Season 2, where they technically, while introducing new Tamers, they also had the luxury, as it were, to have the previous cast to sort of pass the torch down to our new Tamers. This time around, we're slotted in with a whole new cast of characters, which, quite frankly, even in a retrospective review, whether it's looking back then or even in the current state of shows that have coming out, I still think that this is an extreme rarity for a show to do this, is to have an entire new season just be completely made up of a whole new different cast of characters and a whole different story even. Again, this is very uncommon, so I gotta give it to Digimon for its credit, as this is something that is both done in its television shows, plural, and video game series that following the Digimon World series, and it has some branched off paths in the video game franchise now, but in Digimon Season 3, we are now following a new trio, and the marketing is even shifted even further from a meta perspective. That being, in the first two seasons, it was all about just trying to market just the Digivice and the crest as like these sellable little devices that you could buy. Here in Season 3, they broadened that all the way out to just sell the entire Digimon card game. And I must say that if there was any season that I would have considered successful if I had more money, it would probably be Digimon Season 3. So that is to show the quality that I believe Digimon has cultivated in Season 3 in particular. Now, of course, I'm also here to review it also objectively, which means I'm still going to critique it where I find it necessary, point out things I would have improved on, but also calling out things that I think are fantastically written in this season as well. So to do both. So, to start us off, we are met with our new three characters, our human characters. We have Takato in the middle there, we have Henry on the right, and we have Rika on the left, on the bottom portion of the poster. In each of their respective Digimons, we have Takato with Gyomon, we have Rika with Renamon, and we have Henry with Terriermon. And right next to Renamon on the poster there is Kalumon, and we'll talk a little bit more about him a little bit later on. But for the time being, Digimon Season 3, in its valued marketing idea, opens up with the concept that the Digimon card game exists in the universe of the show, meaning that Takato is already an avid card-playing character, and he's meeting up with his fellow students to, after school to go play the Digimon card game. This is, of course, not like Digimon Seasons 1 or 2, where it was like more self-contained, because it was happening primarily in the digital world. It's not like they were spirited away into the digital world off the gate here. The opening of Season 3, to change it again from both the first two seasons, is that a good portion of the first portion of this takes place in the human world. It's actually Digimon coming into the human world seems to be the sliding scale that prevails in Digimon Season 3. And I think from that also comes a sense of a smaller scale, and also a lot more condensed in terms of sort of the world you have a sense for in this landscape here, which I actually do think is could potentially be a good or negative thing depending on how you utilize it. And I do think that for the most part, this show and its writing particularly utilized it fairly well here. And we'll get into that a little bit more. So, with Takato being your sort of stand-in generic average fan, Henry is sort of the pacifist of the group, or wondering if pacifism is the best course of action as new and more Digimon are passing through into their world. Whereas opposing that directly is Rika, who is, at least off the gate, relegated to wanting to be the best of the best. She even serves as the expert, as it were, quote-unquote expert, as it were, in terms of being able to beat the Digimon with Renamon, seemingly being the most powerful of the trio in the offset of the show, and we see that sort of play out earlier on, and we see a quite interesting flip in dynamic in terms of who gets to Digivolve first, and we'll talk about how I think that that's really expertly crafted here in terms of the writing, as I keep mentioning. So with that, our characters are established. So Takato opens up here with drawing Guillemon anew, sort of internalization of how Digimon can even be created, is that he just sort of imagined it, and it sort of, Guillemon was inserted into the world through this human, which is something that is, not happened before. And get ready to hear that quite a bit more as I continue to this journey through the retrospective of each Digimon season, always either opening up with something new or taking a gimmick that was from the end half of a season and opening with that gimmick as the sort of main premise. So yes, that is something we'll be talking about as we sort of progress to the next few seasons, as I try to catch up with the Digimon stuff here on my own pace. Anyway, so as we're following Takato, he's sort of the, again, mid-fan adventurer, and he meets Guillemon after the fact, and he's trying to hide him, obviously, and that's not the most easy thing to do, as Guillemon is quite the curious Digimon, wants to just play and look around, is quite curious about this whole world, even refers to his own human partner, or tamer in this case, as a Digimon, because that is Guillemon's, very basic understanding of when at least he first arrives in this show. And whether intentional or not, I don't know, but at least from a retrospective point of view, even when I initially saw it as someone growing up, I always thought the Guillemon in the cardboard box was a reference to Metal Gear, especially looking back. But in this instance, of course, Guillemon gets caught in the cardboard box, going to school in one of the episodes, not even that far in. I think this is even in the first or second episode, if I remember correctly. And Guillemon talking, so the principal lifts up the cardboard box, and lo and behold, Guillemon is of course inside. So the principal is already freaking out, and so the kids are already like, there's something definitely weird going on here. And on top of all that, there, again, as I mentioned, Digimon entering into this space, potentially causing havoc. But there is a separate group that is this sort of digital gate cop sort of gimmick here, which I think is also a prelude to DATS, if I'm being quite honest. I think this is where DATS was inspired from, this whole idea of like a like a police, essentially like almost like a police, but for like Digimon specifically. But here it's the very in like sort of conception of that idea. And they have like these computers that can track down where the Digimon are popping up, and our tamers are sort of whisked away into these battles. We have Rika in the earlier stages challenging them at first, and then when they learn that these other Digimon are entering their space, they sort of cold off their little debacle between the trio and themselves and start to tackle on these more and more of these challenges. Although, again, Rika having the most easiest time getting among these earlier challenges. Now, what makes this interesting is that since Henry, as I was mentioning, is the most pacifist among them, I find it so well rewarding and almost in craft of like really great writing is that his Digimon is the first to digivolve. And this sort of alludes to the fact and premise behind Digimon, at least in terms of how they digivolve here, is that their connection through their tamers is really well handled, or they have a deep connection, which is again, which with an assist from Kalumon, as we'll see develop alongside this, is what allows them to digivolve. So yes, Kalumon is sort of like a character / plot device here. Anyway, so Henry is the most pacifist, and he gets his, unintentionally so, Terriermon to digivolve first. And because of that, it is so fitting that Rika would have been the last of the trio to get her digivolve, because she was the antithesis of what Digimon is about more broadly in its entirety, and that being the whole idea that Digimon are more than just data. They are living creatures with feelings and emotions, and they can form these connections. And Rika did not believe that, and so since she saw them as data, that is what blocked her the longest in terms of being able to digivolve. It was her state of mind, rather, that had her alluded to being the last in this squad here. Which means Takato would be the second in the group. And so we have a sort of monster of the week sort of formula here, which is a little bit different from the first two seasons, as well as it was very obvious in the earlier show or the seasons that they were very clear arcs. Even within those arcs, even if it still had sort of this villain of the week sort of attitude toward it, you could still tell it was still leading up to that main villain. And here, they definitely have they sort of don't have a main arc quite yet at the offset of the show, but they do develop one as we progress further into the show, which helps us sort of get to know the characters a little bit first and foremost, rather than them being whisked away into the digital world and them having to exhaustively, battle and then develop and battle and develop. Instead of, it's like, well, they're still technically doing that while in the human world. We do see a little bit more downtime with, like, Takato hanging out with Jerry, which is one of the other humans, and his other friends, and so on and so forth, and how he's going to keep his secret about Guilmon and how the others have been doing it so successfully, how Henry was using it since Terriermon is so small, like a doll or a toy that his little sister can just play with, and Renamon is like a ninja, so she's already fine. And of course, even in their own designs, we have sort of a following of sort of the gimmick of outside of, the Digimon world, of Guilmon being the most innocent boy, Terriermon being the most chill, and Renamon creating the most furries. I mean, we are here to be completely honest here, and this is a retrospective review, and if that hasn't been said before, good golly, I might as well just point out the obvious. So, just to get that out of the way. But yes, she is also simultaneously the most serious among the trio, in terms of the Digimon trio here. But they aren't the only three Digimon, as well as Kellamon sort of being that, as well as, again, the plot device to help them digivolve anyway. We also have a character who doesn't seem who's going to be seen as quite important quite yet, but we will soon learn how wrong that inclination is, and that being the character of Impmon. Impmon, spoiler alert early on, I'm just going to say it best, I'm going to say my personal favorite character in this particular season. So Season 1 was Gatomon, Season 2 was Vmon, and now Season 3, my favorite would be Impmon here. So I'm gonna continue that trend to tell you which one would be my favorite Digimon among them, and explaining sort of why. So, Impmon is introduced as this no-good sort of trickster-like Digimon, sort of like a continuation of the whole gimmick of like Gatsumon and Rockmon from the first season arc with Myotismon. But what makes him set apart is that he regularly checks in with our tamers and espouses the idea of, and hates the idea of seeing Digimon being tamed up or being partnered up with humans. And as we'll learn later on, is the reason that's even the case is that Impmon himself was also once partnered with two humans, which I don't think was something that was ever a case before. The two humans are like twins, so I guess they just like share a Digivice significantly later on in the show, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, since the twins are so prone to arguing with one another, Impmon was in the middle of that, as again we learn later on. And so he sort of abandoned them, seeing like these two are no good, and as a result, the rest of the humans and Digimon being together is probably stupid and bad, and he sort of sticks his own personal problems onto others, which is a very common sort of tactic or trope in this case. So Impmon gets even more interesting as the show goes on. As the others evolve and grow, we see Henry be more affirmed in his actions. We see Rika explore her emotional side, since she's so cold and cool and rugged and so she's like the opposing side of that, and again, having Ducato learn sort of the basics and sort of become the leader, as it were, incidentally almost so, in terms of gauging the others to follow in. And that sort of leads us into the arc build-up, which is the 12 Digimon. I don't know if the Zodiac. I don't know what the name was exactly, how they refer to them, but it's essentially like a bunch of Digimon that represent the Zodiac. Henry is the one who eventually figures this out once they start appearing in the digital, or in the human world, I should say. And again, why this arc doesn't even feel like it is an arc is because the gimmick has already been that Digimon have been passing through to the human world anyway. It just so happens that these particular 13, I think that's how many months there are. I could be wrong. Oh god, embarrassment time here. But anyways, it is up to them to continue to fight these significantly stronger Zodiac-based Digimon. And we see them evolve further, get better Digivolutions, and progress. But they know that the threat will keep on coming into the human world, so this is where they begin to explore the idea to go into the digital world. This, of course, is followed up by several characters learning about the Digimon along the way, and dealing with that. The Tamers getting better, Impmon continuously harassing them or messing with them, to eventually challenging one of these Zodiac Digimon, and not doing particularly well, considering he still couldn't Digivolve, all things considered. In fact, he was pretty much nearly eradicated here and then. But he was sort of put before one, and as the rest of the humans eventually, our trio make our way into the digital world, alongside some of the side characters that sort of join them in their adventure, as well as Jerry, as I mentioned, who will become significantly more important. She gets like skyrocketed from a side character to a main character that Takato also pretty clearly, even in the opening episode, has a crush on, that is made pretty clear earlier on, and sort of developing that along the way as well. So she's going with them as well as two others, two of other Takato's friends. I'm not even going to try to remember their names for this. They're not too important, is what I'm trying to get at here. Anyway, so they're all heading into the digital world. Impmon is being given this chance by this Zodiac Digimon to gain a significant power to Digivolve, but in order to maintain that, he must intercept and get rid of the our squad here. So, that is the case. They will indeed intercept at a point. So, in the digital world, our Tamers and Digimon get a little bit separated for a bit. We meet another side character, the one person who, I believe they put it as the one person who beat Rika at some point in the one of the Digimon tournaments. His Digimon is a Monodramon or a Cyberdramon Digivolved. His Digimon is a little bit more chaotic here in the digital world. And he seems to be a side character that does come back here a little bit later on, but opening, he seems to have been in the digital world before, too. Seems to be the implication that this is giving us. So our trio, or, well, not trio anymore, but our squad, is now facing off with new challenges. Jerry is introduced to her Digimon, which initially they weren't sort of even inclined to think so, which was Leomon in this case. So this could be sort of the beginnings of the meta joke or meta sadness of Leomon constantly dying. For those of you who don't know, that is something that happened in Digimon Season 1, Leomon dying. That was not in Season 2, because how close they were together, I'm assuming, but in Digimon Season 3, surprise, surprise, that gimmick is back. Leomon dies again. But this time it is to the force of the return of Impmon, or rather Beelzemon, as he is now evolved into. And since Jerry had formed a connection with Leomon and beating, they managed to get one successful victory under their belt, which was Orochimon, this several-headed snake-licking Digimon. That was their only victory under their belt, and then Beelzemon came back into the picture. Leomon stepped up when the others couldn't quite do as much here. And of course, Beelzemon strikes Leomon and evaporates him and takes his data. This in turn gets Jerry to weep, as she sort of had this not only obsession with Digimon in her own way, she seems to, at least in certain points, seems to have maybe even a little bit of a crush on Leomon, through all the blushing, visually speaking. Sorry for the cut there. As I was saying, I was covering at Impmon dealing with Leomon, and Leomon once again being the sacrificial lamb, as he was in Season 1, as I alluded to. Might have been cut, I'm not even sure. So I just wanted to peep that, just in case. So yes, Beelzemon takes out Leomon, and that causes Jerry to be upset, because she not only was obsessed with Digimon in her own way, as I mentioned in the cut, perhaps, she also sort of had a potential crush on Leomon, question mark? She does blush a lot towards him, and it's a little weird, but whatever. Anyway, this, again, does cause her to lose all of that hope in general. But Takato, as a consequence of this, and will also return another gimmick from Season 1, and that being the main Digimon turning evil, or getting a dark Digivolution from the main tamer's rage, in this case, his hatred for Beelzemon's actions. So, yes, Guillaumon Dark Digivolves. This challenges Beelzemon as he absorbs even more of the 12, I believe he takes on 2 different Zodiacs and absorbs them just to maintain this fight, as once Takato sees what he is doing and sees that this way was wrong, but he still wants to fight alongside Guillaumon, wants to fight with Guillaumon, almost as if they were one. And this was a gimmick that is now introduced that is completely new to Digimon. It would be later on, as I already sort of alluded to, preluded in another later season of Digimon we'll talk about later in another video, retrospective covering that season. That being when Digimon and humans merge into one thing, a new Digimon, as it were. Takato with Guillaumon form Galliantmon, or Dukemon in the Japanese version. And this in turns the battle, and Beelzemon sort of left to his own devices after this battle. And we do see Jerry go off on her own for a bit, and something happened to her off screen, and then the next time we see her, she's very much significantly changed. And this already introduces us to the sort of final arc, or the beginning of the final arc here. Uh, that being that Jerry has now been taken over by what they refer to in the show as the D Reaper. The D Reaper is this sort of creature, as it were, that doesn't seem to expand into understanding Digimon or humans all that much. It just seems to delete whatever it considers be something that is beyond its functionality, and this D Reaper is considering that all of human existence is falling under that category, but it is using Jerry as its hostage. We see later on Jerry being held in this bubble, but it's using Jerry's form to trick the others outside from getting too close, as well as using other defenses. So this is a combination of a just talk plus a just battle sort of sequence where Kalumon is with her, so he's the one primarily trying to convince her that she can be more, that the loss, despite all the loss that she has faced, that she could still carry on. And this sort of alludes to, once again, Digimon diving into those darker themes, as alluded to in both seasons 1 and 2 for different reasons, and here seems to be once again the case. This seems to almost be alluding to Jerry almost being, yes, I'm going to say it, suicidal, or not wanting to live anymore. But, again, having others convince her, whether that be Kalumon, who's there with her, or her dad, who visits from a far distance and is attacked by the D-Reaper outside with its various different forms and defenses. Whether that being the others trying to talk to her and reach her through their voices while also simultaneously battling. And while all of this is going on, we see Impmon has Beelzemon has reformed into Impmon, and through being beaten in such a way, he too is almost lost in sort of almost a similar way, feeling but in this case it's a feeling of self-disgust of what he's done, and he's sort of now looking for his humans because he had, as I mentioned, the two twins, and he had visited them a few times here at this point, this being either the second or third. And he's now sort of searching for them because apparently they moved somewhere. So other people are running from Impmon as he's just trying to ask for directions, but he's seen as a monster. But Henry's, I think it's his dad or mentor or something, instructs him and tells him that where their location is based on what he was given earlier, or what he found earlier, I should say. So yes, Impmon is now seeking his own adventure. He eventually goes to where they are. He goes up to them, and they both apologize to him, which is like this sort of eye-opening experience, because they have no concept of what he's been up to this whole time. They just thought he ran away and was never going to come back, but he's now here. They don't know any of the other stuff, like I mentioned, killing Leomon, so they see him as a sort of lost returning Digimon that they feel really bad for letting go, and it was this loss that taught these two twins that they can share with one another, and that they are going to do so, but Impmon still feels this obligation to help now as well, because he feels guilty and he wants to have a very condensed sort of redemption for what he's done. In that, he's given a toy gun, and thus he's able to digivolve from it to an expanded form with the wings. Beelzemon, that is. So he's able to now traverse, and he too is now helping and gets significantly close to Jerry. He's like at the bubble, he's like punching at it too, and with a sacrifice of a side character slash another plot device character, one of the programmer's daughters who had a Digimon, a Cerberusmon, which is a three-headed dog. It was his sacrifice that she had to let go, that allowed the Digimon and humans to fuse while in the human world, because they couldn't do that level of Digivolution. And then we see the return of Cyberdramon, or in this case, Justimon, as it is now his fusion. So it is Galliantmon and Beelzemon working together to work at the bubble, and Impmon digs down deep and does one of Leomon's attacks. Jerry being now convinced after the slew of characters talking to him, whether that be her dad or Kalumon, and now hearing Impmon's voice and not wanting to lose anyone else. She's awoken, she's trying to fight back on her own now, so she was pushed out of that stasis of being, just sitting there and not doing much. So she is finally freed, which allows them to gain access to defeating the creature, the D-Reaper. All the while we had Takato admit his feelings for Jerry, and I'm not sure that particularly followed through to her, or whether that was the D-Reaper. I'm not really sure which one it is at that point when they're on their train. But point being is that it is through that combination of two tactics to reach Jerry and finally have, with that opening, gain the successful victory. But it is not that alone. Because, of course, with this being Digimon, of course they're going to try to replicate the bittersweet ending that we know and have come to have seen out of Digimon. So, it was this combination of the humans that were once either working against them in specific, now working with the Digimon developers in tandem now, to build this arc. And one of them, the bad one, had this a program in it called Juggernaut. And from there, this program was designed to completely erase D-Reaper, as it were. However, as a consequence of this, once the D-Reaper is blasted through Terriamon's Digivolved form, because that's how they were carrying it in the first place, what happens is that all the Digimon begin to disappear. This was the cost of them getting this particular final blow-in, this victory, is that they had to sacrifice the Digimon. So we see all the Digimon de-digivolve to their baby forms, and then be swept away into the back into the digital world. But the final shot is indeed Takato one day searching and finds that hole and hears a little something something, implying that he might have found a reinserted Guilmon, the one and the same. But it still seems to be a, for the most part, bittersweet ending of Digimon Season 3. And that was that. So yeah, there were some side characters that I would have liked to have seen explored a little bit more. Whether that been the girl that does the sacrifice with her Digimon, whether that being the two that come with them into the digital world, that sort of, they get a little bit here, but it's pretty basic, and they get their Digimon super late, as I mentioned, so since they still, again, fall under the side character category. Impmon, while interesting, his story is quite condensed, and again, I think this is a sort of an effect from the world on top of the amount of episodes that he's allowed to explore this whole arc of redemption. Again, his whole redemption is very condensed. I'm not sure how I would expand upon it necessarily, and again, I think that's a case of, I think they did what they needed to do to show him coming around sufficiently. And there's always this concept or idea that the Digimon do return to the digital world and are reformatted. So there's always that idea on top of everything else. And we would definitely see that happening a little bit more later on as well. But, yes. I would say outside of the side characters, probably just needing a little bit more here. I do think that the main characters are rather sufficient in what their adventure seeks of them. And I think that that is all you really, it does cover what it needs to cover. As long as these three are set, I do, and they are, by, what I would come to conclude is that is, you're already doing your job substantially so. And I do think that because the cast is so significantly smaller in terms of main characters, I do think that does hold a certain position of why a lot of people would also probably say that Digimon, this particular season, was so strong, is that the focus was able to be maintained on just these three and their Digimon. And as, Impmon, again, being like these little bits and bobs that are introduced here as well, or it dealt with. So yeah, I would definitely still say that Digimon Season 3 is definitely one of the better highlights of Digimon. But we do gotta move on and continue on our journey to catch up to eventually get to Digimon Ghost Game. That is the ultimate goal of this. So, next time you see a retrospective, we're going to be covering Digimon Season 4. So if you did enjoy this review and this retrospective, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One way to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server, where you can join, collab, and chill, and do a lot of cool stuff. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.